Hey, lovely listeners, Tori here, the host from Ready to Be Petty, and I've got something special for you, my new podcast, Ready to Be Romanced. Get ready for the hottest tea on the latest romance novels. We're talking reviews, recaps, and all the spicy details on hashtag book talk trends. If there's a love story setting your hearts on fire, we've got the scoop. Whether you're a seasoned romance addict or just looking for your next book fling, Ready to Be Romanced is your one-stop shop for entertainment, insight, and a whole lot of laughter. So buckle up, bookworms, subscribe now, and let's dive headfirst into love, passion, and happily ever afters.
Hello, and welcome to Too Stupid to Live, a podcast that reviews romance novels $5 and under. I'm your host, Becky Feldman, and yes, if you feel the temperature rising, you know what that means. It's another Hot as Hell with TSTL episode where I chat with your favorite and or soon-to-be favorite romance authors about their careers, the latest books, and the romance community at large. And I am so excited about today's guest. Jennifer Wilck is here. You know I love my Jewish romances, so I had to talk to her about her latest book, Matzah Ball Blues, and of course I went on tangents, but whatever, I had a mic in my hand. What can I say? Well, no, what I can say is that this episode is so much fun. I really enjoyed getting to know Jennifer, and you will too. So please enjoy this episode where Jennifer Wilck gets hot as hell with TSTL. Jennifer, welcome to this podcast, Too Stupid to Live.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
We were like literally just talking about how I'm like you write Jewish romances in New Jersey. I am a Jewish woman from New Jersey.
Mhm.
Romances, not so much, but so I very much related to your world and your book.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. I'm so
So
glad.
So we want to get to know you. So tell us about your career, how you got into writing romance. But you could like ease it. Like first, how are you? How are you doing this fine? I feel like I'm like, tell me about your worst childhood memory, and then like just go no.
I'm good. It's actually my birthday. So I'm really happy to be talking to you today. It's I'm happy today. So it's a good day.
Oh my God! Happy birthday!
Thank you. Thank you very
I am
much.
also a February birthday.
We have so much in common. I did not realize this going into this.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I can't. I feel like I need to like get you champagne like through this computer screen.
I had sushi, so I'm good.
Oh,
That's my
good.
celebration. So I'm
Ah,
very good now.
good, good, good. Well, thank you for being here and celebrating. So it seems like you're in a things are going well. It's your birthday. You have a new book coming out. Talk about that.
Okay, yeah, things are going very well. I'm very busy actually. I have a bunch of books that I'm
Oh, okay.
working on, but Matzah Ball Blues is the second book in a three-book series that I have. It is Jewish contemporary romance. Second Chances is kind of like the trope, and it's with Harlequin Special Edition. And I was honestly thrilled that Harlequin wanted to focus on a series of books that were Jewish.
Hmm.
Um, that obviously were romances, but they were, emphasizing and talking about the Jewish world. And, on the covers, they put things that show that it's Jewish. And especially in times like this where we are all going through such difficulty and the world is crazy and whatever, it's nice to have the joy of romance but also Jewish joy while we are delving into romance books.
Right. Yeah. Because I feel like, there is so much just you hear the news, you read the headlines,
Mhm.
and I think it's easy to assume what a community of people might be going through without
Mhm.
realizing, oh, there's nuances. We're individuals, we have our own struggles,
Correct.
things like that.
Correct. And, these books, or this book, Matzo Ball Blues, happens to be with Jewish characters, but it can appeal to anyone. You do not have to be Jewish to read them. There is enough explanation about anything that is specifically Jewish. Hopefully, I tried. that, if you're not Jewish, you can understand. And the stories are universal. Again, it's second chance romance. Boy meets girl, they fall in love, they separate, they come back together, and ultimately there's a happily ever after. It's a very well-known trope. It's what you go to romance books to find.
Mhm.
And the Judaism in the book really is the point is to add some texture and some nuance. And that's really all there is to that's the purpose of the Jewish elements of the book.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that because, like, I feel like maybe like our generation, we all a lot of us say we were raised Jewish, but we're not really. I mean, like we
Right.
celebrate, but we don't. Not a lot of people. Like I just in my world, like not a lot of people belong to a temple or like kind of do the high holy days like we did when we were younger. So it is
Right.
like, but it is still there. It's still part of your identity.
Yeah, and I think, there's such a wide variety in people who are Jewish. There are some who are extremely observant. There are others who literally they eat bagels and that's how they
Hmm.
identify as Jewish. And it's a whole gamut of in between. And so, plus there's plenty of romance readers who are not Jewish. And so there's just a whole spectrum of people who can potentially see parts of themselves or relate to stories that their parents or their grandparents have told them, and they can recognize pieces of that in the book.
Yeah. I think what really spoke to me in Matzah Ball Blues is just it feels like there's this strong theme of grief and post grief of you both of the characters have dealt with like significant loss in their lives, and they're kind of at the point where it feels like it's at the point when people tell you, "Oh, time will heal all wounds," or at the time is healing part. And it was so interesting to read, kind of like the struggles of like, not that like they're past the acceptance stage of I have lost this person in my life, and
Right.
I think that's such like that world in itself. I think is going to reach a lot of readers.
Mhm. Yeah, I think everybody grief is a universal emotion. I love writing characters that have some deeper psychological depth, I guess, to
Mm-hmm.
them. So that there's a reason. So like I'm interested in like why does this person behave in this way and what's the motivation and why and how are they going to react in this situation or that situation. And so I, everybody's grief journey is obviously different and everybody's life journey is different. But these two characters are coming from, um, I guess, a similar perspective where they both have suffered loss, but now they are looking to the future and how to move on from where they are,
Mm-hmm.
in their own time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to hear about your life journey. How did you get started writing and reading romance?
Well, I've always read romance. I joke around that when I was a teenager and stealing, like my mom's romances, I actually, if I was uncomfortable, I skipped over the sex scenes and I just wanted to read the books. I liked I liked the fact that there was a happily ever after. And in fact, I'm horrible. A lot of people will not like this, but I would often skip to the end of the book to make sure that the ending was satisfying before I read the book. Not so much to give anything away, because one of the reasons we read romance is because we know there's going to be a happily ever after at the end. And I wanted to make sure it was satisfying. So I was always reading, I mean, I was reading a ton of books, but I was always reading romance. And I guess around when my husband and I would go on like car trips. We would, if they were long, I'm old. So back when we were young and newly married, we would get books on tape, which is, not really don't really exist anymore. And because he and I read different genres, we would tend to compromise and do like a mystery. because like a simple one because you want it to be able to concentrate while you're driving, but also have the story going. And I remember we started listening to Faye Kellerman, and she has a Peter Decker mystery series, which is this policeman goes into this Orthodox community where a murder was committed, and he meets this the female character whose name is Rena, and they ultimately fall in love, and that's an entire series. He's not Jewish, she is, and it's a whole mystery about it. But when I was listening to it in the car, I was like, oh my gosh, she just kind of took Judaism and folded it into the story. And it's still just a story, but it has this added flavor to it. And I was like, that's how I want to do. That's what I want to write. And I do write romances that are not Jewish, but I always had that in the back of my head. And I started writing romance when my kids were little and they'd go to bed and I would stay up and like start writing. And oh gosh, I joined writers groups and I entered contests and I went through small publishers and then bigger publishers. And ultimately, I got where I am today, which is a hybrid author. So I do have some self-published books. I have some of my books that have been with small publishers, and then I have Harlequin. I kind of look upon the different publishing houses as kind of like when you invest, if you invest your money, you want to be diversified into a variety of different things so that if one thing doesn't do well, your entire portfolio doesn't fall apart. And the same thing with publishing. I want to be able to have my hands in a little bit of everything so that if a publisher fails, and I've been with small publishers who have failed, and I don't want all of my books there because then I don't have any more books that are out there. So I kind of want to be a little bit of everything.
Do you find that like your creative process is different based on like what publisher you're writing for, like Harlequin versus an indie publisher?
Yes, definitely. Well, my creative process has changed over the years. I find myself kind of going in and out, like I was very creative for a while. And then with COVID and everything going on in the world, I kind of lost my creativity for a while and was trying to, figure out what to do. But yes, different publishers have different requirements. I'm actually writing a few books for Harlequin, and, like Harlequin has a certain idea of what they want. Um, and when I write for myself, I go where the story takes me, and smaller publishers don't necessarily have as many constraints in a way. So it's kind of nice right now because I'm working on the third book in, this series. But I'm also writing for Harlequin for a multi-author continuity series. And for those, they give me the synopsis and they say, okay, if you're going to write this, this is what we want you to write about. And they give me the characters and the setting and the story. And I have to add and expand a little bit on it, but I don't have to come up with the story in my head. So sometimes it's easier to write for that, where I can just kind of get the writing muscle going, keep it limber, and then as I have, creative inspiration, then I can work on something else or I can add it to that book, and I kind of just play around a little bit. And luckily, I mean, I have the flexibility that I can kind of go back and forth on different books. Although right now I'm writing too many at one time. It's getting a little confusing, but
It happens.
it does.
Yeah. That's really cool that you're participating in like a multi-author series. So do you just like, because I'm curious, do you like get an outline and you kind of just expand upon the outline?
Yes, I do. And actually because I write the Matzah
Mhm.
Ball Blues, they wanted Jewish characters in this multi-author series. So they came to me and said, would you be willing to do it? And they did give me a full outline. And the tricky thing for me is I don't typically write to an outline. I am what's called a pantser. And, as something comes into my head, I write it down and I expand from there. And sometimes I start at the beginning of a book, sometimes I start in the middle or the end and work backwards. It's whatever kind of works. Um, and the couple of times that I did try writing from an outline, because when I first started, I said, okay, I'm going to be doing this. I'm a professional author. I should be serious about this. And I should write an outline like all of these other, big authors do. And I was writing a romance and I left out every single piece of romance. There was no kissing, there was no touching, there was no looks. It was just they went from A to B to C, had a plot, had a story, but there was nothing. And I had to completely trash it. So when Harlequin gave me this outline, I was like, oh gosh, I don't know that I can do this. Um, but I do it. I've learned how to do it. And I've actually, in their outline, I write where I need to, okay, so, make sure that by this point in time, they've gotten to this point in their relationship and this is like, longing looks over here and a kiss over here. And like, I actually put it into the outline, which is great for my editor because they know exactly where everything is going to happen. And good for me because I'm like, oh, yeah, right. Okay, I need to put that scene right here. Okay.
Hmm. Do you keep in touch with the other writers working on different books, or
We
are you?
do.
Mhm.
We do actually because we are writing in a specific world and therefore it's a set of 6 books each time. And so if somebody describes a cafe that's in the town, everyone else, if they come in contact with that cafe, the cafe has to look the same, has
Mhm.
to have the same people in it, the same decorations, the same food. So we have emails going back and forth, hey, did anyone describe this? Or I'm going to talk about this here, and this is what I'm saying. And, we send little descriptions or paragraphs back and forth and just make sure that everyone is kind of in the same, on the same wavelength as far as an idea for what they want to do.
Right, yeah. Do you ever like run into anything where it's like, oh no, don't do that. Like I made this person a dog owner, not a cat owner, and I have to change everything now.
Okay, some of the other authors have had that happen.
Hmm.
The one thing I ran into was I'm currently writing a scene where they're going line dancing,
Hmm.
and I want the heroine. It wasn't the hero. It was like the hero's sister was always dragging him to, come on, let's all go to line dancing. It'll be fun. We love doing this, whatever. And one of the other authors is writing that sister's story. And she's like, nope, she's not a dancer because I talk about in the Valentine's dance how she can't dance.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, well, that's yours and you've created her. And okay, I will change it so that, she's not the dancer that I had her being. And actually will end up being funnier if she is really excited about going line dancing and can't dance at all. So it will work out and it's fine. But yeah, people say right away, no, 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 this doesn't work, or oh yes, this will, or whatever. So
So it seems like whoever your protagonist is, like you have the final say in where their character goes, and if like if a side character in your book is a
mhm.
protagonist in someone else's book, you kind of have to like be like, okay, yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Because I mean, I can't,
Your
if
children.
her not being a dancer is important to that story, I can't suddenly have her be this, great dancer in mine
Hmm.
because then it negates everything that she just went through in her book. So
Right. Yeah. 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 Do you find like working with the authors similar to like the writers groups that you had joined when you first started out?
Um, I think the biggest difference is in the writers groups that I'm part of, like I'm part of New Jersey romance writers. In those groups, we really are sharing our knowledge and our expertise in different areas. Um, Romance writers in general are a very supportive group. They're like I love being part of this community because we are in general very supportive of people and oh, you're trying to do this here, let me help you with my experience and maybe that will help you, or oh, you need more readers here, I'll put you into my newsletter, or I will, I'll give you a shout out or whatever. So with the writers groups, it's really kind of learning about the craft, learning about the business side of it, the marketing, the whatever, like asking for advice, getting advice, giving advice. Um, with these multi-author continuity series, it's really very specific to the books that we're working on. So yes, I mean, absolutely. I will always say, hey, I'm part of this series. I'd love to feature you all in my newsletter, kind of that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really our conversations are much more specific to the story and making sure that, a character that starts out with blonde hair in book one, by the time we get to book four, still has blonde hair.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
It's really nice to hear about the writers groups. However, just being able to like dispense advice. What is one thing that you took away that you still use to this day? Like, what's a integral lesson you think you got from that experience?
honestly, I think one of the best things I learned from this group is the importance of supporting each other and, helping the people who are coming behind you who know less and depending on the people who are in front of you who know more. And because this is such a caring community, I think that makes romance writers very special. It's one of the few places where you have a lot of women who are seriously invested in each other and in each other's success. Because we realize that there's I think there's like a meme or something I've seen go around like it's not pie. There's enough for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And we realize that the kinder you are to the people behind you, that comes back and helps you.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I may not be able to read everybody's books because there's only so many hours in a day and my TBR list is huge. But I'm so grateful for anyone who can read my books. And I might not be able to reciprocate in that way, but I might be able to say, let me help you publicize your book.
Mm-hmm.
I know someone who is looking for a book like yours. I want to recommend your book. Or, oh, somebody is looking for an author to participate in something, let me suggest you. And it's kind of like we are this microcosm of society and we're trying to make it as pleasant as possible and as helpful. And I think seeing how it works and how it consistently works is such a huge lesson that I've taken away from it because it's not about it's not about if she's successful, I can't be. There's not the jealousy. It's not necessary. There's plenty of room for all of us. And if something works for me, it might not work for someone else, but it might, and vice versa.
Because it feels like, I mean, you are, when you put out a book, it feels like you are launching into the unknown. Like, you don't know how well something's going to do, but you do know how, like, oh, I'll support you through this, or I'll get the support through that. Like, that's the one guarantee, is that you'll have, like, a good attitude about it.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, reading is subjective, and there's no way that every single thing is going to be a major success. There's no way that everyone is going to love what you write. I wouldn't want everyone to love something because, like, the beauty in this is that I like these books, someone else like those books, and there's plenty of room for all of us. So there's never going to be a guarantee.
Mhm.
And that's fine. And sometimes it's disappointing, sometimes it's scary, but that's just the way it goes. And we all understand that. So again, you have that support system where we say, okay, we're going to give you a boost right now. And at some point in the future, someone's going to give me a boost and
Mhm.
somebody's going to boost them. And.
Mhm. Something that really resonated with me, I was on your website, and it's you mentioned that you started to tell yourself stories when you you were younger, when you couldn't sleep at night, and I just
Uh-huh.
had to say I did that all the time too, and I still do that.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, I was like I thought I was like the only one who did that. Well, I mean, I know I'm not, but um the only person who ever said it aloud, I guess.
I think it was, I mean, my kids are grown now, but when my kids were younger and they couldn't fall asleep, I would tell them, okay, tell yourself a story instead of worrying about the fact that you can't fall asleep, because my mom told me that. And as a parent, I realized, oh, she just didn't want to be sitting here like all night long telling me, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. So she came up with this idea and it was very helpful for me. And, I passed it along too. And I still do it, now when it's a good way of quieting my brain and
Mhm.
and just kind of thinking about something else.
What if you are telling yourself a story to fall asleep, but then you're just like, oh my God, this is a great idea for a romance novel? Are you like up in the middle of the night, like, I gotta write this?
I have my phone next to my bed with the notes app and I take
Hmm.
some notes and I hope to God that the next day the notes are coherent enough that I can do something. And usually if I have an idea like as I'm falling asleep, that idea will usually play multiple times. So if it's an idea that's actually going to work, I will have it for multiple nights in a row so that I can, write it down the next day and then add to it and keep adding to it. So, yes, but having the phone next to my bed is great.
Hmm. And it does help you sleep. You're not up all night being like, oh, but then,
No, because honestly, and it's funny, the best ideas that I have, I actually end up falling asleep to. And at first I
Oh.
was like, okay, clearly I'm like the most boring person in the world if the story idea is putting me to sleep. But for some reason in my head, that like I'm so into the story, I'm not thinking about staying awake and I'm falling asleep. And then the next day I'm like, oh, okay, here it is. And I'm writing it. And when I'm awake, I'm not falling asleep as I'm writing it. So I'm like, okay, we're fine now. But
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's a sign that's like, okay, the pieces are falling into place. Like, I'm
yeah,
able to sleep. That means, like, there's a good backstory, there's a good, climactic
right,
moment, things like that. Like,
right.
if you couldn't sleep, you'd be like, oh, wait, but there's a plot hole here. And, like, that keeps
Exactly.
you up. It's like knowing the story more than,
Yeah,
like, oh, the whatever. I
right.
appreciate that. It's like the advice you could, like, pass on to other writers. Like, make sure you can sleep at night. And.
Exactly.
Are there any like particular stories that that you have published, like some of these like late night thoughts, throughout your whole life? Have they ever made it into any of your books? Just even if it was like the smallest idea.
Um, yes, I think as I'm writing, I will often think of like the black moments.
Hmm.
And that is often what will stick in my head and will make it into the story. So, one of my one of my very earliest books, The Heart of Little Faith, like it had the black moment is one that I had started thinking about at night and then put into that. Another one that I just got my rights back and I'm going to be putting it out again on my own. Also has that. The black moment from there is what I thought about at night. So yes, they do like make themselves into the stories. Not so much like the stories I told myself when I was a kid, because
Hmm.
I don't really remember those, and those probably were not worthy of anything, other than, oh, hey, it kept me in bed so my parents could watch TV and go to sleep.
Hmm. Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. Um, so I want to get back to talking about Matzah Ball Blues. I love the character of Jared so much, and he's undergoing like this huge responsibility, and I think as someone who I've watched my two now almost 3-year-old niece now and have been in a situation where I get the wrong diapers or like I'm just like in over my head. I'm just watching her for 2 hours.
All
Like
right.
this character is taking her on to adopt her because he lost his brother and sister-in-law. And so I just wanted to know like more about this character, how you came up with him, what was your inspiration?
So, I came up with the heroine first
Hmm.
because she was the friend in the first book.
Right.
So
Hmm.
I have this group of girlfriends, and then it was book one, book two, book three. Um, and so because she was left at home because she stayed home because her mom was sick. She stayed home and her boyfriend left and kind of not forgot about her, but kind of, went off to school. He started out as not exactly hero material.
Hmm.
And I needed to redeem him in some way. And a lot can be forgiven if it's, like in this story, it's basically, 10 years or so. And so, you can forgive someone for being young and immature, but you need to see that transformation and you need to see how they are maturing and how they are making up for doing something that wasn't great in the past.
Hmm.
So therefore, I needed him to really step up and be taking care of, this child whom he loves. He didn't want to be in this situation, but he had no choice. And so he steps in and saves, takes care of this little girl. And so that was kind of a way to show that how he has changed and what circumstances have made him the way he is, and also kind of show the lack of knowledge and how he's overcoming that and getting help from his mother and from other people just to kind of exist in this world.
Hmm. Because it just like goes, it's like kind of, I don't know, it just, people step up when they need to step up, even
Mhm.
though like if you're just imagining a certain scenario and you're like, how do I deal with this, like, but then when you are dealing with it, you do what you have to do without even, like, I think
Exactly.
they say like throwing a hissy fit, you know.
Right. Like you're thrown into a situation, you either have to sink or swim,
Hmm.
and you don't have an option when you're thrown into it. So you just have to do things, and you have to, get yourself to a point where you can stop and think. But the stopping and the thinking occurs later. It doesn't happen in the moment.
Right. Hmm. What I liked about this second chance story is that like it was almost like these characters were taking a second chance on themselves as
Mhm.
well as a second chance on the relationship. Like what they didn't just break up because of like circumstances, you know. Like they had their own things going on and they were you you're kind of like rooting for them to like find themselves again in addition to getting back together. Obviously, it's a romance.
Well, yeah, and yes, I want the characters to obviously get together so that they can have that happily ever after at the end. But that's part of what I was saying in the beginning, where I like to have more of a psychological component or a deeper reason, because I want to be able to show how each character is able to change on their own. Their life is not just the relationship with the other person. Like they have a life on their own, and that has to change as well. And that has to be as fulfilling to them as their relationship is. Because, romance is wonderful and we all love it, but, they can't just exist for the other person.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Because I feel like in this book more than others, I was like, well, what's he going to do about the nanny? And like, what's she going to do about her trip? And then I'm like, why am I worried about like they're not the love story, which is the main thing I'm supposed to be reading? But I am worried.
Well, I didn't want to make you worry, but
Well, not worried.
I'm glad that it resonated with you.
Yeah, I'm a very like empathetic person, and I kind of sometimes forget that fictional characters are fictional. And I'm like, well, what are they going to do? Like, I know nannies. Maybe I'll send them. You chose Passover as the holiday to kind of revolve this story around. It's I find it very funny as someone who used to get in trouble for not being able to sit still and giggling too much during seders. Like I find Passover to be the least romantic holiday, like personally, because of my experience with it.
Okay.
So I'm just curious, like why Passover?
Um, because honestly, it's a fun holiday to show.
Hmm.
There's a lot that is involved with the actual holiday, but also it's kind of a second chance as well, a little bit, because you're trying, the point of Passover is to commemorate the the Hebrews going out of Egypt and being led
Mhm.
by Moses. And so there, at that time they were looking for a second chance. Well, we are having a Seder
Mhm.
and we are remembering what happened. We are passing that story along. And we are also like each time you prepare for Passover, whether it is you're cleaning every part of your house or you're just all sitting down to a family meal and you're going to read the story, you are giving yourself the opportunity to have a second chance at that holiday. No matter your level of observance, whatever you're doing is great, but it's like a second chance to experience that.
Mhm.
So it kind of felt like it worked with the second chance romance. And it was also there's enough to the holiday that I could um like have it last for more than one day or one scene in the story.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, it's interesting because like went through, I did Hebrew school up until I graduated high school, and I've noticed that like I always learn something new about Judaism when I read a romance novel that happens to have Jewish people more so like something that was like never mentioned, in Hebrew school. Like
Right.
do you run into that like as a writer as well, like when you're just like looking stuff up or
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm going by some of my knowledge, but I don't have all of it. So I'm looking it up because also if I'm putting it into a book, I'm like, okay, I'm writing this down. It needs to be accurate.
right.
So, I'm researching and making sure that I'm not making some huge mistake. There's plenty of little mistakes. I'm sure I make many of them. I'm a work in progress, but I'm always looking it up and there's lots of things that I'm learning that I never knew about. When I'm writing this multi-author thing, it takes place in Texas. And so from being from New Jersey, having living on the East
Mhm.
Coast, I am very familiar with the customs of Jews on the East Coast,
Mhm.
but I'm not so much familiar with Jews in other parts of the country. So I was doing a lot of research into Sephardic Judaism, which is from people who are from the Middle East, from Southern Europe, that area. And so looking up different cuisine that they might eat, or a couple of different customs that they have that we don't have. So there's a ton of information that, I'm always gonna, take in because I'm writing it down.
Yeah. It's just nice because, like, never in my life would be like, oh, there was a civil war, like, in Israel. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why, how would I learn this in a romance novel? Why didn't they tell me? Like, did I, like, fall asleep that day? Like, in Hebrew school? Like,
Well, first you learn a lot of stuff, you forget a lot of stuff, and it's
yeah.
all depending on who's teaching you and how it's being taught. So,
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what makes it so great when it comes from a romance novel because it's so unexpected, and I love it. Can you tell us about the third book in the series? What holiday it's or is it? Do I have to?
oh no, I can
Oh,
tell you,
okay. Hmm.
I don't have it's so the third book. So the first book was Home for the Holidays, and that was around Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The
Hmm.
second book is Matzah Ball Blues and was around Passover. The third one is going to take place around Hanukkah.
Hmm.
Because honestly, and if you say you write Jewish romance, everyone automatically assumes that it's Hanukkah. So I had to put a Hanukkah book in there just to make everybody happy.
Hmm.
Um, it is with the third friend in the group. So her name is Jessica. And the title is still, we're still working on it, but it's interfaith. So
Hmm.
she is Jewish. The guy she falls for is not. They're next door neighbors and they've kind of like grown up together. And she always had a huge crush on him and he was older than she was. So he kind of like, put up with her. And now she's back.
It's so I can't help but notice the your reaction to putting out a Hanukkah romance because I've said this on the podcast numerous times. Like Hanukkah isn't the most important Jewish
It is not.
holiday.
It is not. It's a fun holiday. It's a cute little thing, but but it's the holiday that everybody knows. So
Hmm.
they make them, so it becomes a much bigger deal.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's like sometimes you know it's like kind of it's like oh it must be Jewish Christmas. So like
Right.
you see all the books like that's Hanukkah based. That's just like oh like find and replace Christmas tree with like menorah or
Right.
something. If
I
you
mean,
have
I love,
oh
I'm thrilled to write Hanukkah romances. That's totally fine. People have asked for them, and it's really funny because again, I was part of, I'm part of this New Jersey romance writers, and anytime a publisher puts out a call for Hanukkah books, I get like a ton of emails from all these people like, Jen, we saw this. Did you hear about it? Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? I get like all of these emails. I'm like, oh, that's fun. Maybe I will. We'll see.
mhm.
Um,
Do you ever get like because like I feel like there was a time in my life where I'd be like does everyone just see me as the Jewish girl, you know what I mean, when I get those emails like
yes.
and so when you were talking just now I was just like oh god that does that annoy you like what's your thought process on that?
I love the fact that I have created enough of a brand that people think about me that way. And I know that it comes from a place of, they of love, like
Hmm.
they are using it as a sign of respect, and
Right.
they know about me. They're like, oh, of course, let me pass this along to you. Yes, sometimes it's just like, ugh. But in general, I do appreciate it.
Of course, yeah, because I think it's different, when it comes from like your friends that you respect and things like that. Like living in Los Angeles, like I'll like sometimes get like auditions for like rabbi roles because I'm an actor, and I'm just like, what do they think I am? Like, or just like I had to like learn Yiddish for something, and I'm just like I know three words, you know what I mean? And so like it is interesting like just the people who know you get you
Yeah,
in this in your world, which is great.
yes. But the alternative is that I'm not known by anyone at all, and that would be worse. So I'm glad that, if they're
Yes.
thinking about that, okay, they're sending people my way anytime somebody mentions something. So
Yeah, yeah, it's
I'll
so
take
hard,
it.
yeah, not to like bring your own like bias and like background, because it's
Exactly. I'm like,
yeah.
pushing that aside and just like, this is great. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, because it is like there's that it's hard being raised Jewish in the United States. You do have like challenges and
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's like
you do.
yeah.
And I would much prefer, and it's taken a while, with age comes wisdom, and it's taken a while for me to get to this point, but um, I appreciate whatever people are going to throw my way as far as, oh, hey, I heard about this, or, do you want to join us? I want to add some diversity to this line. Would you like to, join? And
Hmm.
so I would much prefer to just take it from the position of appreciation
Yes, of
than
course.
anything else.
Yeah. Oh, I admire that. And yeah,
I'm not always successful, but
yeah, but
I really strive
no,
to do
we're
that.
human.
So
We're human. It's okay. I feel like I've like slowly gotten to like as I've been getting older, like slowly kind of appreciating like okay, they mean well. I think
exactly.
I was just like an angry college student for way longer than I should have been. You mentioned your TBR list is very long, but what is on your TBR list right now? What have you read recently that you'd like to recommend?
Oh boy. Um, the book I'm reading now is really, really good. I can't remember the title of it.
I never
However,
remember titles. Oh my god.
I'm
Oh,
yeah,
thank you. Thank
I
you.
can't remember the title of it, but it's very good. But there is a book that is sitting on my table that I'm dying to read. It is not actually it's a mystery, although there is like an overarching romance. The author is Claudia Gray, and it is she basically has taken all of the Jane Austen books and kind of put them together and created this mystery series throughout. And her books are fabulous. So I read the first one. I'm going to be reading the second one, and her third one comes out in June. She's fantastic. Beach Read by Emily Henry, I loved. I read that. That was really great. Um, else am I looking forward to? Oh gosh, honestly, my TBR is huge. At this point, I just grab them. I'm like, all right, what is this? What should I read now?
Yeah, I get into trouble when like, because you know how there's stuff your Kindle day, and like I'll get a text, be like, it's stuff your Kindle day, and I will purchase for free like 95 books. And then
Right.
that I'm just like, I had this, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's so
Exactly. Exactly.
overwhelming.
My like I have on my Kindle, I just like put so much stuff, and then I have, paperbacks of ones that I'm a little more confident of, but I'm very
Hmm.
happy to like try something on my Kindle, but I end up with so many of them, and then I was like, "Oh, I had no idea this was here." Okay,
Yeah.
or it's
Hmm.
from like years and years ago because I'm just stuffing it with things and then getting to it, I was like, "Oh my, this has been a really long time that I've had this here."
Yeah. And then like, I'm like, I'll get into like things where I'm like, I have nothing to read. And then it's like,
I
I
know.
have literally 200 unread books. I'm like,
I know, yes. Yeah.
Do you have other, your mom, you mentioned it was a romance reader. Do you have other family members who are romance readers?
Actually, my daughters or my oldest daughter has started reading romance. She is in law school, and so when she has time, she
Mm-hmm.
started to read romance. So now she and I will, like recommend books to each
Oh.
other. So that's kind of fun. She doesn't read mine. Neither of my girls do. That's totally fine. I
Mm-hmm.
completely understand the fear of, oh my gosh, this is my mom. I can't get past that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's no problem. But yeah, so my daughter does. Some of my friends do, but I think I don't know about the rest of my family is kind of they read a variety. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not just romance. So like, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law will read, but they also read a lot of other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do you think like, because you were talking about mystery earlier, like, do you think you would ever kind of do thriller subgenre, like a like a hot, like a Jewish romance thriller? Like, would you ever combine genres? Is my
So my problem is that my brain doesn't work that way. I would
I do
love
tell mine didn't either. I couldn't say all the words together.
I would love to write a mystery,
Hmm.
but you would solve it on like the third paragraph. Like literally, my brain just doesn't work that way. I so admire people who can create a mystery,
Hmm.
but I can't really do that. So I'm sticking to my little part of the world and letting all the mystery writers do their own thing. And we're much better off that way.
Yeah. I mean, that said, though, there was like with Caroline's job, there's a bit of a mystery going
Yes,
on.
I always add like
Yeah.
a little something because there has to be like again, I want something for the plot, to further the plot along to give them something to do. But it's not, I wouldn't say it's a like I
Yeah.
don't think yes, what happened
Hmm.
there was a mystery, like who was causing this problem. But at the same time, I still wouldn't categorize that the book as like a romantic suspense
Of course
because the
not. No.
romance
Yeah.
is much more prevalent than the mystery. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll add something in there. Um,
Yeah. Well, of course. I guess like what was interesting about that is like that kind of, smaller plot line is just how as a woman how she's treated when she's questioning
mhm.
about something, like in regards, she's kind of told to stay in her lane, which was like,
Right.
oh, like that to me, like in terms of that plot point, like stuck out the most than like, oh, who did it? I'm just like still mad about, as I said, I obviously think fictional characters are real. Like I'm just like so mad about the way she was treated and like talked to like that.
Right, right. But again, like in my head, I didn't want everybody to be all sweet and light and nice.
Mhm.
Um, so it worked for me, like to have that character be, less than ideal.
Yeah. Um, for both Carolyn and Jared, as we mentioned earlier, like they have they have tragic loss. Both of these characters have very tragic loss in their family. And that's a heavy theme to bring in. How do you like go about balancing kind of the heavier emotions that can come with dealing with these characters' backgrounds and then going into like the kind of more lighter moments?
Um, I think because I have always grown up with the belief that humor is necessary to get through life.
Mm-hmm.
And even when bad things happen, you have to acknowledge them and obviously deal with them, but you also um I am always looking for something that where I can, okay, even in the worst situations, maybe I can find a little something that's funny that's just going to help me take a breath and get to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
So as a writer, I'm trying to incorporate that into the story. I don't I want to show the emotions fully, but I don't want to be dragging the reader down to the depths of despair and then leaving them there. Like I
Right.
want to be able to bring them up. And I think having like how the characters balance that is also an interesting thing to see as like who they are.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting because like I feel like as a culture Judaism does value humor in that way as
Mhm.
well, even if it's like not like specifically like you know called out into in the book, but there is like that element of that kind of mentality.
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, if you look at, comedians, a lot of them are basing their humor on something tragic that happened and then they're turning it around. I'm not, equating myself with a comedian, and I'm not saying that when Jared and Caroline both experienced or each experienced both of those losses, they weren't sitting there laughing, but there's always going to be something that they
Mm-hmm.
can, use to help get themselves out of that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh, laughter is a good form of medicine, as is romance, as is, reconnecting, and it's
Right.
just whatever is working.
Yeah. And honestly, I think as humans, we are very capable of experiencing multiple things at the same time or very
Hmm.
close together. And I think that is just how we cope.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So okay, remind us when the book comes out, about other books you have out. This is the plug yourself moment.
Oh, plug myself. Okay.
Yeah.
So Matzah Ball Blues comes out March 26th. It is available for pre-order now, but it releases March 26th. The first book in the series, Home for the Holidays, is currently out. Um, and I have several series and individual books, romances that are available as well now, all of which are on my website. Um, I will also be re-releasing a series that I had written earlier that I'm redoing and whatever. And so those will be coming out in May, June, and July. So yeah.
You are busy, busy, busy. It's astounding to me how like just talking to romance writers, like it feels like you guys are like writing like 12 million books at once, and it's like I can't even remember to brush my teeth in the morning. Like,
So this is honestly the busiest I've ever been. I
mm-hmm,
normally will write one book and edit another at the same time,
mm-hmm,
but I'm currently working with like four different things right now because of all the different deadlines. And it's definitely overwhelming. And if you look at my manuscripts, I will like in big letters say like, check this, because I'm still not sure. Like, I know that something, I know there's something, but I'm not positive I have this right. So I need to go back and make sure that this is the character I'm actually talking about. I am hoping in the future. I love being busy, but I think I've taken it a little too far, and I'm hoping in the future. I remember how crazy this was, and don't take on quite so many projects at the same time.
Well, we all relate to that. We all have those like times in our lives where like I've been saying yes to way too many things.
Right. I'm trying to be, accommodating and easy and
Hmm.
okay, yes, of course, I'm happy to do this. And I really am. And I love all of these things. But I think next time I need to just build in a little bit more time.
Hmm. Well, I am sure it'll all be worth it. All of this busyness that you're dealing with right now. I'm excited about your re-releasing of those stories. I'm going to be getting those, and just yeah, thank you for being a guest. This was so much fun. It was such a pleasure meeting you.
It was so great to be here. I really appreciate all of your, encouragement and your willingness to talk to me. And thank you.
You can check out the show notes or the episode page at TSTL Podcasts for links to Jennifer's books. Too Stupid to Live is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. For more podcasts you'll love, visit frolic.media/podcasts. Thank you so much for listening and have a great rest of your day.